Immediately, I was told by the doctor that it was in all likelihood either caused by his vaccination or by one other reason. Through rigorous testing afterwards, it was in fact determined that it was vaccine-induced transverse myelitis. Now, transverse myelitis is an autoimmune disorder, so to explain simply, Otto's immune system got confused and the cells within his immune system started to attack his spinal cord and did permanent damage. I had no idea an injury like this was possible from vaccinating. There are package inserts that come with the vaccines that have a list of potential adverse reactions. You can ask a doctor to see these. I didn't even know they existed, and Otto's pediatrician never offered to show them to me. 2 of the 4 shots he had received had transverse myelitis listed as a potential adverse reaction. I had no idea. I had not received proper informed consent. What is informed consent? I'll read you the definition. To give informed consent, the individual concerned must be in possession of all relevant facts. In cases where an individual is provided insufficient information to form a reasoned decision, serious ethical issues arise. So you should know what you're getting into when you consent to any kind of medical procedure. Now, I truly had no idea that my son could end up a paraplegic from a spinal cord injury caused by his vaccinations. Most people are not aware of this. I am asked on a regular basis by people all the time, what happened to him? And I'll respond, it's a vaccine injury. And the most common response I hear when I tell someone that is, vaccine injury, what's that? I hear it all the time. And these are, of course, people who have been vaccinated, who have vaccinated their children, and like me, they didn't receive informed consent. So after this happened, I began to educate myself about vaccines and the vaccine program and the history of disease. I hadn't learned about it in school. I had wrongfully assumed that the vaccine program was the same or very similar to my experience when I was a child. I couldn't have been more wrong. The vaccine program now is nothing like it was when I was growing up. It is completely different. Here are some of the things I discovered. I found out that 30 years ago, the pharmaceutical companies that make vaccines lobbied on Capitol Hill and in state legislatures to get total liability protection for every vaccine the government regulates, recommends, and mandates. They even offered to cut the government in by giving them a part of a new surcharge on the vaccine. So for every antigen in a vaccine, there's a 75-cent surcharge that goes into a fund, and the government takes 25%. That 25% the government takes goes to the general treasury. It's not designated for anything specific. They can use it for whatever they like. Before this time, the government did not profit from vaccines. And unfortunately, guess what? Congress enacted the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act of 1986, which released vaccine manufacturers of liability for the vaccines they make. So, if vaccines are so safe, why would these companies need a no liability clause? Think about it. The fact of the matter is, they're not safe. We know that. It's acknowledged. The most common phrase used is that they are unavoidably unsafe. And if you look at the vaccine inserts and read through the extensive list of adverse reactions, it's clear so many horrendously bad things can happen. At the time they were lobbying for this immunity, the DTP vaccine was causing a lot of injuries and deaths, and that's what inspired this. They didn't lobby for immunity because they had the safest product on the market. They did it to protect their bottom line because they were getting sued left and right. So why is it important for a company to have liability for their product? Well, that is what gives them incentive to make the safest product possible. After 1986, everything changed. As soon as these companies were released of liability, they started adding more and more and more vaccines to the schedule. Now, let me put this into perspective. In 1986, there were 24 doses of vaccines on the children's vaccine schedule. 24. Today, there's currently 74 doses of vaccines on the children's schedule. Literally, the vaccine schedule has tripled since I was a child. Very different. So, I stopped vaccinating Otto after his injury. I was terrified to do it again. These are Otto's vaccination records. I was looking through it yesterday. At 17 months old, Otto had already received 37 vaccines. If you are above the age of 25, Otto had received more vaccines at 17 months old than you were supposed to receive in your first 18 years of life. And with the new law in California, SB 277, Otto doesn't have enough vaccines in him to attend public, private, or charter school.
Boo!
He currently has at least 13 more vaccines in him than my generation did. You know, in the media, they call someone like Otto, who is behind on their current vaccination schedule, unvaccinated. He's had 37 vaccines. He is not unvaccinated.
Yeah.
Now, maybe you could call him partially vaccinated or not up to date. I'd call him overly vaccinated. But calling him unvaccinated and anyone else who is behind the schedule, whether they're missing one or several, is part of the deception and the scare tactics that are basically a huge marketing strategy to increase sales. Now, something else I learned as I researched the vaccine program is how they do their safety tests. First of all, when a safety test is done on a single shot, it's done on a single shot vaccine, not multiples, which for the most part is how they administer vaccines in multiples. And when they do a safety test, they don't do it by the industry standard. Now, when I say industry standard, specifically I mean every other medicine in the world is tested this way. That standard is a double-blind, placebo-based study, which if you don't know what that is, basically it's a test where they take it, for instance, a group of 400 people, they give half of these people the medicine and half of the people get saline. Then they track these two groups over an extended period of time and see what kind of health issues arise in one group over the other. That's how it's determined what kind of adverse reactions can happen from a medicinal product. With vaccines, both groups in the test get vaccines, both sides. One side will get one vaccine, one side will get another. But both vaccines contain many of the same ingredients, including the antigens and adjuvants that are implicated with causing health issues. So these tests are really not designed in a way to show accurately the adverse effects a vaccine can have or how common it can be. When you read about how safe vaccines are, it's based on these bogus studies. Studies that if it was done that way on any other medicinal product, it would not be approved for public use. So I'm just scratching the surface here. These other speakers went way more into it than I did. The corruption, the carelessness that goes on in the vaccine program. I implore everyone to research this topic, to educate themselves. On the pro-vaccine, don't question the vaccine program side, I often see people discouraging others from researching. You're not a doctor. You're not a scientist. You do not need to be a doctor or a scientist to educate yourself on the vaccine program. I am not an electronics engineer, but before I buy a stereo, television camera, I do research. I look it up and learn as much as possible so I can make an educated decision. And certainly you should do this before deciding what is or is not injected into your baby or into yourself. So anyone can do this, and I encourage everyone to educate themselves about the vaccine program. And I just want to end with saying, I know there are a lot of you that are keeping your stance on this topic to yourself. The media has been conditioning people to hate anyone who speaks negatively or questions the vaccine program. If you believe that you should have the right to choose what is or is not injected into your child or into yourself, you have to make that known.
Yes.
You might face ridicule, you might lose some friends, but this is the time. Vaccine mandates are here. They're coming all across the country. You cannot wait for the day when you show up to work and you're told, you can't work until you get this, that, and the other vaccine. By then it's going to be too late. The time is now. And you might see people speaking out and think, well, they're doing a good job, they've got it handled. We're just trying to inform people and bring everyone together. Make no mistake, this is a numbers game. We need everyone to believe that they should have the right to choose to stand together, make it known, and together we will stop this medical tyranny.
Thank you so much, Josh and Otto, for being here. When we do our march, once we finish up here, I hope that they lead the way.